Hunter x Hunter differs from other shonen series in many aspects. In my opinion, one of the strongest is in how the author treats his protagonist or how the universe he inhabits treats Gon. Depending on the storylines presented, a protagonist's credibility can be overshadowed by things like plot armor, the power of friendship, a will that accomplishes meaningless things, among other things. But, in my opinion, Togashi does an excellent job in creating a convincing dynamic of actions and reactions around Gon. For example, Gon shows great determination in stealing Hisoka's placard during the Hunter exam. We see him spend a lot of time preparing, analyzing the situation and creating a plan. However, although he manages to accomplish his goal, in the end he is easily defeated by the participant who had Gon as his target. That is, despite all the will, effort and good intentions, Gon forgets a crucial aspect of the competition and pays the consequences. Again, we see this when he tries to return the badge to Hisoka, only to be defeated in one blow, and it would take him many months of training before he could finally return the badge to Hisoka in the battle tower. Later in the story we see another very clear example of how Gon will not be able to get everything he wants just because. When he had to defeat Kanukli to return to fight the Chimera Ant. Again, Gon made a huge effort, but the universe did not magically reward him just because he had good intentions. Gon ended up losing his battle and we saw him cry from the frustration of being too weak. These examples help us understand that the world of Hunter x Hunter has fairly well calibrated consequences to the actions of the characters, and although there can obviously be random moments where things go too well for the characters, negative consequences also exist and are seen constantly. This cause and effect plays a pivotal role in Gon's development due to his personality traits. Gon is an extremely stubborn character. He likes to do things his own way and often falls into selfishness by endangering his companions simply because he wants to do things a certain way. These types of traits are quite common in shonen protagonists, and in general, the plot is responsible for allowing the protagonist to behave in these ways without too many consequences. But unfortunately for Gon, in his case this is not the case. His stubbornness often makes the situation worse, causes other characters to scold him and has negative consequences that may become clear at that moment, or sometimes we can understand them in future arcs. One of the reasons why Gon can act this way is because he is a prodigy who, in addition, puts a superhuman effort to the tasks he wants to accomplish. This gives him room to be stubborn and sometimes get his way. Another aspect that often allows him to be stubborn to the point of creating problems for others is that Gon has incredible qualities that win over many characters, such as a great charisma that endears him to friends and enemies, or an unbreakable will that motivates many characters to want to learn to have that level of focus and determination. Thanks to those qualities, Gon's friends often let him get away with things that were clearly unreasonable and should not have been allowed just because of his stubbornness or lack of maturity. For example, we repeatedly see Kurapika and Killua strategizing to solve problems, and sometimes they are forced to modify these strategies to fit and allow for some stubbornness that Gon does not want to let go of. Killua, on more than one occasion, says that it is his responsibility to clean up the messes that Gon creates. These attitudes are born out of good intentions and the great admiration they have for Gon. However, Togashi does not forget that allowing these irresponsible actions should have consequences, and although sometimes it seems that Gon came out without negative consequences after making self-destructive decisions, in reality sooner or later we see those consequences explode, first slightly and later with devastating power. Among some of the moments when other people, usually more experienced, did not let Gon's destructive stubbornness pass, we can see when on Greed Island, Gon and his companions communicate with Genthru and have a hostile conversation. At the end of the conversation, Setsugura scolds Gon for acting so selfishly without thinking that his best friend, Killua, had injured his hands for helping him in the dodgeball game and would be putting him and the others in danger. Another example is when Netero gives Killua and Gon a special mission to beat Kanukli and shoot to earn a spot on the team. Netero gave them a deadline of 1 month, which in itself was already a practically impossible deadline, and Gon in his stubbornness and impatience, says they will do it in a week. Without thinking about the danger he would put himself and Killua in. During this decision, and to his bad luck, Biscuit had arrived to train them, and when he heard Gon's idea, he immediately beat him as punishment and scolded him strongly for acting so irresponsibly. The third example, and perhaps the most important, is when Gon, Kite and Killua meet Neferpitou. Here, Gon again loses his cool and stops thinking about the safety of the others, becomes furious and decides to attack Neferpitou, only to be stopped by Killua, and then Kite thanks Killua for his quick and sensible action. Gon was completely useless in that situation, speaking of his strength, so engaging in combat would have only endangered Killua and Kite. They probably would have all three died, seeing how strong the royal guards were. This immaturity forced Killua to stop him, and subsequently caused Nav and Morel to mock Killua for escaping the fight, although later history proved Killua right about there being no chance of defeating Neferpitou at that point. These circumstances are usually inspired by good intentions and positive values that Gon has, but good intentions can be just as destructive as bad ones if used in the wrong ways. And the world of Hunter x Hunter often punishes these actions. Among the consequences we can see for these behaviors of Gon, Killua, despite being his greatest ally and friend, was in a very complicated situation when Gon wanted to believe at all costs that Kite was still alive. Killua could not be that optimistic, and although he admired Gon's good attitude, even calling him a light, at the same time he mentions that one light is sometimes so strong that he has to look away. That is, Gon's optimism and determination are fantastic, but taken to the extreme they become naive and dangerous, and Killua found it harder and harder to accept these attitudes. Killua is much more analytical and can't help but think of negative possibilities, for example in this case, that Kite was already dead. In addition to this excessive optimism, Gon took it upon himself to save Kite by himself, and as we know, once he makes up his mind about something it will be almost impossible to make him change his mind. This caught Killua between not wanting Gon to get his hopes up, being worried that Gon would put himself in too much danger by trying to save Kite, and being afraid to face his stubbornness because of the threat of losing his friend to a fight, and at the same time between wanting to help his best friend who had helped him so much with his own demons. We saw Killua suffer from this situation that had no clear answer, to the point of breaking down in tears and begging Palm for her to help Gon. It was a new and contradictory situation for Killua, plus Gon himself was not letting himself be helped because he was drowning in his determination. Gon's subsequent collapse in front of Neferpitou was simply the accumulation and explosion of these problems that Gon had been dragging along. His over-optimism, his stubbornness and selfishness led him to break down at the moment when he finally had to accept that he could not save Kite. All his will and good wishes this time could not force the others to act as Gon wanted. This moment of collapse was not only because of Kite's problem, it was a whole series of events that we saw from the beginning of the story, where Gon clung to his stubbornness and optimism, and little by little things went wrong for him, until his friend and tutor Hunter died, and Gon could not deal with the world not molding to his optimism. Under this cruel reality, Gon decided to sacrifice everything for his revenge. He practically made a pact with the devil, again, without thinking about his friends, the devastating damage he would do to Killua by self-destructing, and the terrible loneliness and guilt he would leave to his best friend. Later, Killua and Aluka did the impossible. They saved Gon, in what seemed like a magical outcome and without congruence with all this process of stubbornness, determination, cause and effect that we had seen. However, we quickly saw that Togashi did create new consequences for Gon. His mistakes could not simply be forgotten with Nanaka's wish, and Gon understood it. First he went to ask Jing's forgiveness for letting Kite die, then he asked Kite's forgiveness, and finally, he asked Killua's forgiveness. Gon was forced to reflect and accept that he had failed and hurt others. Furthermore, the consequences didn't stop there. We later learned that Gon's Nen had been reset. This may sound relatively simple, but it was a pretty serious consequence. All the effort and training Gon had put in since learning to use Nen was taken away from him. Gon is lucky enough to be a prodigy who was able to achieve great strength in a short time, but in reality, losing his Nen would mean losing years and years of effort for almost anyone else. At the end of the day, Gon is full of mistakes with repercussions in his environment, just like any other Hunter x Hunter character, but he also has an admirable ability to reflect and ask for forgiveness when things go to the extreme, as well as to seek to fix what he has damaged. Gon has helped, directly or indirectly, many characters he has encountered along the way, and his list of constructive qualities is much longer than his destructive ones. If we see him again in new adventures someday, he will probably still have that stubborn and optimistic side, but I think he will handle it in a more conscious way, now that he understands the terrible consequences that can create these qualities that, in the beginning, seemed purely positive. And I think we will see a new maturity in him, born out of the catastrophic events he experienced against the Chimera Ant. What do you think of this character? Leave me your opinion in the comments and thank you for watching this video.